Happy Tuesday! I'm here with the founders of CastingAbout, and we're going to talk about the casting process. I am thrilled to be sitting here at the Breakdown Services offices with Blair Hickey and Brian Wold, the amazing founders of CastingAbout.com. Now, I talk about CastingAbout a lot as a resource, and these guys are a wealth of information about all things casting, and so I'm excited to be here for the next few weeks of Career Tips with you. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having us. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
it's a lot of pressure now, saying all that expertise.
I know,
stuff.
right?
Yeah.
You better
bring our A game.
Yeah, bring it.
Too bad I left the A game in the car.
The Guru Tips audience knows what's up, so they will call you on it.
All right, well.
Yike.
Just putting it out there.
Let us know.
Yeah.
Let us know how we did.
So tell us how you have all this expertise. You kind of started CastingAbout because you needed to be your own agent for a while, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Blair's story is a sad story with a happy ending.
Yeah.
Yes, we like those.
Right. So, So basically, I got dumped by my agency.
Right.
About the same time, I got dumped by a woman. Brian used to feed me. Brian would bring me food and pick me up off the floor.
Yeah.
I had an agency that cut their client list in half. Business decision, they're going to focus on series regulars, and I wasn't doing that.
Right.
So, okay, I get it. But I needed to get in touch with the casting directors that I'd worked with, mostly doing 1 hour TV. Mm-hmm. And I'd done a bunch of co-star stuff, some guest star stuff, and so I had worked with a lot of associates.
Right.
And I went looking
find
for
those
them.
people.
Yeah, couldn't find them.
They move around all the time.
Yeah.
And I sort of got obsessed. It's like, well, where are they, and who are the people I know, and who are the people I should be meeting now, since I was kind of on my own, and realizing that it was just hard to keep track of this stuff. So we went out for burritos at in Burbank.
like all great ideas.
Yeah.
Formed over burritos and Coca-Cola.
And I said, so I had this idea. I think it's a website, and basically the idea was there has to be a better way to keep track of everybody casting in town and what they're casting. And it was a simple idea. But we didn't have the language for it back then, but basically it was a marketing tool, right? Yes. It was having the information about who are the other players in town, who are the other storytellers in town that are casting which projects and who's doing what, and so that I can get to know them kind of on what we call now like a storyteller to storyteller basis, right? Mm-hmm. So we spent about a year. We developed.
We maxed out our credit cards.
Yeah,
nice. I know all about that.
Yeah. And Brian comes from a PR and marketing background, and kind of is a genius in all things internet. So it was actually great putting together kind of like actor experience and marketing experience, and then a web-based environment, and what do actors need. And so a year later, CastingAbout comes out, which at the time was a way that you can make mailing labels and do some research. And
it's great for that.
Yeah, it's
great for that.
Use it for that all the time.
But I think it's grown and changed over time. So, as more actors started to use it, I think a lot more than we anticipated, it became this research tool, right, that people were now using. And it started to go. And then 2 years in, I think we were approached by Breakdown Services and says, I like what you're doing. And Breakdowns, as we know, in Actors Access is this great sales tool where you can sell yourself for a role. But at the time, they didn't have a marketing tool. Sales and marketing kind of go together. Mm-hmm. So we became a Breakdown Services company. Yes. We now have our office here, and our staff grew, and we were able to open an office in New York. Yeah. And now we spend most of our time, representing Breakdowns, talking to casting directors, talking to agents, and how do you work, and how do you keep in touch, and how do you communicate, and all that stuff that, man, I wish I knew back then as an actor, right? Yes. All that stuff about the day-to-day, how does it work?
Cool.
It's been an amazing education.
Yeah, and over the years, it's given us the opportunity to ask a lot of questions that actors are dying to ask of the way casting works, and how agents work, and how the system works, and we've had the opportunity to ask them those questions, and then, we can share it with the world, in a way that helps the whole industry be more professional and more informed. And I think it's kind of cool that we've sort of fallen into this little place in things. Yeah. And we're still friends, which is, a shock, frankly, because this guy.
Yeah, they do everything together. Yeah.
He introduced me to my wife, so there's that.
Aww.
So
sweet.
How cool is that?
Yeah, well.
So before this video was like 15 minutes, let's break down how the online casting process works. Just give us the basics. Like what happens when, with whom?
Right.
If it's okay with you,
Go.
So, in most cases, a script is delivered to Breakdown Services. Casting director gets it, and then it's sent to Breakdown Services. We have a staff of writers here at Breakdown Services who actually break down the script into its essential roles. So all of those descriptions that you read, that's, Mary, might be crazy executive, those kinds of descriptions that you read from that are typically written by the writers here at Breakdown. It's then sent back to the casting director. Casting director says, change this, modify this, whatever, and then the breakdown is released through the breakdown system. And the casting director has full control over that. They decide whether they want to release it in which markets and to which audiences. And so in a lot of cases, they'll release just to agents and managers. Some cases they release to agents and managers as well as Actors Access, so that actors can submit themselves for it. And depending on how broad they want to cast the net, sometimes they'll release just in LA, sometimes they'll release in LA and New York, sometimes they'll release all over the place.
How do they decide between whether they're just going to do on Breakdown Express, just to agents and managers, or to Actors Access and allow actors?
Well, one of the interesting things is that from a casting perspective, you're going to, as soon as you release a breakdown, you're going to get thousands of submissions within an extraordinarily short amount of time. Yes. And it's something actors don't always realize because we're so focused on our own thing. We don't realize how many other actors and agents are also submitting on things. Yeah. So as a casting director, in a lot of cases, I don't need to get as many submissions as I possibly can. And in many cases, I'm going to need to get just enough to get, to find the talent that I need, to fill the spots that I need, to be able to bring in the people that I need. And so I'm likely to release to the market that is going to get that for me. Sure. Some casting directors, sort of on principle, will release to everyone to the widest possible thing, and that's how they do their process. Mm-hmm. Other casting directors will release in a smaller way. It's their choice. Breakdown doesn't tell them what to do. Right. And so it ultimately depends on how the casting director wants to do things.
I think that's actually a really big deal. Yeah. There's myths and misconceptions out there, right, that actors have. And where Breakdown is released is 100% up to the casting director. And so they decide, when and where to release it. Tomorrow morning, LA and Vancouver, Breakdown Express, which is the agents and manager part, or Actors Access. And out of every breakdown released, which is something like 900 a week or so, about 20% of them are released on Actors Access. Okay. And there's an active push within the company to get more, because that would benefit everybody. Yeah. But with the amount of numbers that come in, there are times when casting directors actually cannot release to actors. It would overwhelm them. Yes. They actually can't do it.
What are those numbers? Kind of just give me a
ballpark. In TV, sorry. Let's start with TV in LA, right? Okay. Just because we see that a lot. That's probably the most number of roles. And for a co-star part, it's not uncommon to get 2,000, 3,000 submissions per role. Okay. And that'll come in about an hour or two. Oh my goodness. Maybe 3. Yeah. We've seen more. We've seen 4,000. We've seen
as soon as a breakdown is released into the system, because it's dynamic and it's real time on the internet. As soon as a breakdown is released, it is instantly you start seeing submissions come in. And within an hour, you'll have 1,000 submissions. Within another, couple hours, you'll have 2,000, 3,000 submissions. A lot depends on the nature of the role. If the role is very specific, then fewer submissions. If the role is really general, you oftentimes see a tremendous number. I mean, it's not uncommon to see 4,000 or 5,000 submissions for a single role.
Well, don't worry. If you're completely depressed, we're going to talk about how to maximize your submission and also how to build relationships so that your submission stands out.
Yeah, and I think that's ultimately what, we always hate giving people the bad news, but it's the reality of the business is that there are a lot of people pulling for these things. Yeah. So our message to professional actors who want to stand out from the crowd is to find those ways to separate yourself from everyone else. And it's one of the things that we like to talk about is these are some things you can do that will not guarantee anything, but at least make you more professional, more prepared, more likely to sort of, be the one that gets pulled out of this giant pool.
Yes, that's awesome. And I think that's a great way to wrap up, because next week we're going to talk about how to make your submission very specific and really the best it can be, and then we're going to talk about how to build relationships.
Ooh, I can't wait.
We get to do this again?
Yeah, we'll be back. Thanks for joining us. If you love this content, be sure to share it with your friends and subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss next week's episode, and we will see you then.
Thanks.
Bye.